Good morning, brothers and sisters. Naomi back for another video. I thought we'd just take today as an opportunity, like we do on every other video, to read through some passages and try to put them together so that we understand them maybe a bit more clear. Now, I realize some of the passages that we're going to actually go through and explore a little bit more are some that we have done on prior videos, but because they connect to other passages, we're going to pull them into the whole fray here of the story of this theology that we absolutely are, or at least I am coming to understand. I hope some of you out there who actually takes the time to watch videos is also beginning to understand. And I want to tell you that as I've gone on in this journey, whoops, sorry about that, folks. I didn't mean to do that. As I've gone on in this journey, I wonder if that blocked that. Parts of scriptures that were closed up to me, that were really hid to me, have just opened like a flower to me. It's just, I know I'm on the right theology because I understand passages that I never did in a way that I could never understand them. Because when they're throwing you on the path, this crooked path of the current theology that they teach us as being the truth from God, what that does is it actually puts a clay on your eyes. So you can't put the scriptures together in a way that we were always intended to do. Or at least the parts that are of truth. And we know they dabble with that. You can't live in a fallen world full of sin and not have it corrupt some of your text. I don't care what anybody says. That's that clay on your eyes that they've put there. But once that clay comes off your eyes and you begin to walk in the clean footpath that God always intended us to walk in, which we've been showing you through this theology, passages just begin to just open up to you in ways that you could never understand before, because this theology absolutely addresses all of that by factoring the righteous feminine back into her rightful place. When you leave her out of the context of the story and you just keep the negative aspect of the feminine there and the righteous aspect of the masculine there, you walk away with what you call current theology today. That's what you walk away with. But when you factor in the righteous spirit where she belongs, and you factor in what fallen Adam really did to that righteous spirit, then you walk away with the truth opening up to you, more and more to your eyes and to your understanding. And I'm just telling you that that's been my personal journey in this theology of truth that I know the Spirit has shared with me. And I feel very privileged that the Spirit has let me be a part of this truth. Now, okay, back to what we were going to look at. We're going to actually start, I think, with Psalm 74. And this is a chapter that also we spoke on prior. Like I said, we did on many of these passages before. We spoke on them in prior videos where they razz Zion to the ground, okay? So let's start at verse 1. We'll read through. A maskil of Asaph. Now, Asaph means gatherer. Now, maskil, I actually looked it up, and it has, and I had to look up the pronunciation of the word. I wanted to say didactic, but it's didactic poem is maskil. It means, and didactic means instructive. To be instructive and to teach. So how maskil of Asaph would actually tend to be rendered would be a teaching of the gatherer, or a teaching instructive poem of the gatherer. All right. Now we come to understand that gatherer is actually your spirit, that is actually spoken about in Ecclesiastes chapter 12. They say, I believe they call it the preacher there. Let me look. We'll check it out right quick, the word that they used there. But if you go in and you actually look the word up, it has the idea of a female assembler. And you're going to have to scroll down in the notes to get that understanding, because they put it a masculine right up front to just completely throw you off. But when you scroll down in the notes, you come to understand it means a female assembler. And it is absolutely referencing the spirit of the body as the gatherer. So it says in verse 1 of Ecclesiastes 12, I don't think it started at 1. It starts at another section. Yeah, in verse 9 it starts, and it's another section of that chapter, and it's called the conclusion in my Bible. And it says, verse 9, and moreover, because the preacher, that's what they called it, the preacher was wise, he still taught the people knowledge, yea, he gave good heed and sought out and set in order many proverbs. No, he didn't, she did. The Spirit does it. It's the female assembler, the gatherer. So that's what this means. All right, a teaching poem, instructive poem of the gatherer, of your spirit. O God, why hast thou cast us off forever? Why doth thine anger smoke against the sheep of thy pasture? So for those who wants to keep hitting at the sheep and goat, well, you better understand how God looked at the sheep in the Old Testament and the goats. God clumped them in the same group and said, I'll judge the goats and the sheep. So in the New Testament, by the time the Greek Testament came along, or the New Testament came along, written in Greek, these men of Baal, these men of Belial were certainly in full control of many aspects. They still had to go by the laws of heaven, which stated you have to show them the truth. Of course, we come to understand that as an edict of heaven. They have to show you the truth. They can surround it in a whole bunch of lies. They can wrap the truth in a lie, as long as the truth is in there. So they've gone by the protocols of heaven. So New Testament, in order to understand the New Testament to the degree that you need to, because most will hit at me saying, why are you studying the Old Testament? You're never going to understand your New Testament without understanding your Old Testament. And that means going in and studying it long and hard. I can tell you that. It's not going to be an easy road. All right. So, why doth thine anger smoke against the sheep of thy pasture? Verse 2, remember thy congregation. There's that congregation again. We're going to look at them again in Psalm 68 after we read this chapter. So, verse 2, remember thy congregation which thou hast purchased of old, the rod of thine inheritance which thou hast redeemed, this Mount Zion wherein thou hast dwelt. Now, I'm going to hold up here for a minute because, and of course, I didn't write it down. I was busy. But let's look that word up there. Which word is it we want it to look up? Okay. So let's go in and pull up rod and just see if that's the word I want it to look up. Okay? Because we're just looking at these verses. We're trying to pull our thoughts together. I'm not always right. It's a study, and we're studying to learn and pick out the things that we can possibly put together with other things that we have learned. Okay, so where is that word? No, it's not there. Okay, I have a better way of doing this, what I want it to do here, I think. Okay. Because there's a word in, I believe, this passage, in this chapter, that's going to take us right back to that rod. Now, you just a second here. If you're with me just to study and look at passages, good. Because it's going to take some time to pull these thoughts together. We are shaping the real theology, the new theology, and so we're really on that clean footpath going forward, and it takes time to understand things. So we're actually going to Zechariah is where we're heading. We're going to Zechariah 9 just to see if they actually have the name of the second staff here. Bands, they do. It's 2254. All right, so I'm going to pull that number up. It's the Hebrew word 2254? Yep. Okay, so we'll go Strong's Hebrew 2254. 2254. All right, let's see. Okay. And we know it means bands, but it appeared in either Psalm 68 or this Psalm 74. Okay, so let's scroll down through our passages until we find the one appears in Psalm 7. was I looking at it? 8:5, Isaiah 10. Is that it? I'll keep looking here. So it's got 27 occurrences of this word. And it has to do with that band that she broke after she broke her staff with her name on in Zechariah 11, for anybody who's been watching my video. She takes a second staff and she breaks it, and the name on it is Heblam in Greek, in Hebrew rather, and I can't say the word Chabal, Chabal, but it appeared in one of these passages that I was studying in a very odd place, but I was busy, so I didn't get the chance to really write it down. And I thought it was in well, that's it. I think, okay, now I'm starting to think it was that one that it was in. Alright, sorry folks. I'm not going to bother with it, okay? When I find it, I'll pull it in another passage. Sorry I wasted time there. But remember thy congregation which thou hast purchased of old, the rod of thine inheritance which thou hast redeemed, this Mount Zion wherein thou hast dwelt. Verse 3, lift up thy feet unto the perpetual desolation, even all that the enemy has done wickedly in the sanctuary. So let's just shift to another rendering. Your adversaries roared in the meeting place where you met with us. They set up their emblems of signs. It was like men in a thicket of trees wielding axes, or welding axes, then smashing all the carvings with hatchets and picks. They set your sanctuary on fire. They utterly desecrated the dwelling place of your name. This is daughter Zion. They said in their hearts, let us oppress them relentlessly. And they did. These daughters, they oppressed them. We proved that. They burned down every place throughout the land where God met with us. There are no signs for us to see. There is no longer a prophet. And none of us knows how long this will last. Well, yes, we do, because the Lord's going to signal to the Spirit that the time is up. Verse 10, God, how long will the enemy mock? Will the foe insult your name forever? Why do you hold back your hand? Stretch out your right hand and destroy them. God, my king, or queen, it's queen, is from ancient times performing saving acts on the earth. Well, guess what we find about that in verse 60, in Psalm 68. What does it say in Psalm 68? The saving acts of the Lord. And we get all the same language in Psalm 68 when we read it. But what does it say? It says, blessed be the Lord who daily loadeth us with benefits, even the God of our salvation. This is daughter Zion. It says, blessed be the Lord who daily bears us up, who daily bears our burden. That's the daughter of Zion, as your sheep goat, as your Azazel goat, cast out in a land not inhabited. She's daily bearing these burdens. So here it says, God is to us a God of deliverances, and to God, the Lord, belongs escapes from death, or belongs the deliverances from death. Now that tracks us back to Romans 11, where we said, if the casting off of them be the reconciling of the world, what shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead? And here we're told that it belongs to the God of this world, and that is daughter Zion here. That is her number. Lord here is 136, which we've talked about, her who sits to the right hand of Christ in Psalm 110. So we have that in Psalm 74. So where did we stop reading? Right, okay, we read quite a ways down. Sorry. Right. Performing saving acts on the earth. 13. You divided the sea with your strength. You smashed the heads of the sea monsters in the waters. Well, once you put together the passages that you find in Isaiah 51, 52, and you take them back to another passage that I cited in one of my videos, It's called strong right arm of God, called daughter Zion, called God. And it proves beyond a shadow of doubt that God here, with that little g in the Old Testament, is daughter Zion. That's who she was. She's the rejected righteous spirit of man in the earth, and she's wandering to and fro in a land not inhabited that became the Gentile nations. Okay? So we're just going through these passages. You divided the sea with your strength. You smashed the heads of the sea monsters in the water. She's going to do it again, because that's your image in Daniel. This great monster with seven crowns, 10 heads, 7 crowns. Look at that. We got 10 tribes of Israel. We got a sevenfold spirit. And so you've got that correlation that you're looking at. You crushed the heads of Leviathan. You fed it to the creatures of the desert. You opened up springs and streams, and you dried up ever-flowing rivers. The day is yours, also the night. You established the moon and the sun. You set all the boundaries of the earth. You made summer and winter. Remember this. The enemy has mocked you, O Lord, and a foolish people has insulted your name. Do not give the life of your dove, your turtle dove. That's a female. That's the spirit. She's called a turtle dove in Song of Songs. She's Christ's spirit. She's the Shulimite. She's also Shiloh, I believe, in Judah's blessings in Genesis 49:9. Let's go there for a minute. What does it say? I thought I had it pulled up. Okay. It says this. It says, Judah, you are a lion's cub. Judah, you return from the prey, my son, like a lion. He couches and lies down like a lioness. Who dares to rouse him, her? It says, the scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the staff from between his feet, until Shiloh comes, and the gathering of the nation unto her. So the Shiloh here is actually the Shulamite. And the Shulamite is the scapegoat. And the scapegoat is daughter Zion, who was rejected by the first Adam. Alright. Known as the righteous spirit, Eve. The nation of Israel set apart, representing that was her seed. Let's continue on in Psalm 74. So the Spirit is calling out here. Consider the covenant. Have respect unto the covenant, for the dark places of the earth are full of the habitations of cruelty. And that takes us back to this idea there has not been a deliverance in the earth yet. She says, we have, as it were, brought forth wind. And when we looked that word up in the Greek, it meant we had brought forth empty doctrines. We have not brought any deliverance in the earth, and that deliverance does belong to the daughter Zion, because only she can deliver the children. We've talked about this. Oh, let not the oppressed return ashamed, let the poor and needy praise thy name. Arise, O God, and plead thine own cause. Remember how the foolish man reproached thee daily. Now, we're actually, these daughters, I believe, we're actually being accused by our adversary, Lucifer, daughter Babylon, in the second heaven. We're accused daily. We're accused daily because of the sin that we're walking in. So she accuses us daily. But there comes a time when we rise up, all right? And it's here that we rise up. God, arise, O God, plead thine own cause. And the way that we do that as God is when the Spirit of the Lord begins to fill these daughters up. And we hit on a word in the New Testament that has the idea of God's actual truths coming into physical time and existence, all right? So it has the idea that God's going to come into existence in this earth, and the plan of God is going to go forward in a physical, very physical way. So it says, arise, O God, plead thine own cause. That's daughter Zion. Arise, daughter Zion, and plead thine own cause. Remember how the foolish man reproached thee daily. These are the fallen sons. All right, we're not talking about righteous sons here. We're talking about the sons of Belial, the sons of Baal, who continue on this crooked path of exalting men as gods, as your Lord and Master in the earth, when they are not. Verse 23, forget the voice, Forget not the voice of thine enemies. The tumult of those that rise up against thee increases continually. And they do. They're getting angrier and angrier over daughters having the nerve, having the backbone, mind you, to stand up for themselves and question the doctrine that they're throwing at you. It makes them mad, because what it does is it cuts the legs out from under them, as opposed to them cutting your legs out from under you, which is designed to weaken you. And we're to do that. We're to actually smash those toes of that false image of Baal. That's what that is. That's a Baal image. That's a man exalted as a God in the earth, as your king, as your Lord, as your master. And it's a false image. And this is what the daughters of Zion are actually going to do. But you got to use some of your own thinking to pull all of these thoughts together with this theology, because there's so many little threads that you have to pick up. It's really hard for me to do that for you. I might know something, but it's very hard for me to go, well, this is something that they won't know, when there's so many things that you really do have to pick up for yourself and understand and pull it together for yourself, just by reflecting on the common sense, the reasoning aspects of it with your spirit, with God, is what you have to do. But by understanding this theology, it really clears up and clarifies to me a lot in the New Testament. And I'm still, like I said, I'm still trying to pull together the wrath and what we have going on. And it can be confusing. Even I see mistakes that I make along the way, okay? Those hopefully will be repaired as we continue on in the studies, because that's what you have to do. This is a learning process. And you know you're going to make mistakes as you go. But as you go, you continue to pick up. And you continue to thread. And you go, okay, this one makes sense. This may not make so much sense, but this makes sense. This is adding up to this part here and to this part here. And this is what reasoning is. We're to do this. We're instructed to do this. Now, Revelations 12 comes to make a lot of sense. Because now we know from understanding the Old Testament that who's in view in Revelation 12 is the daughter Zion. Verse 1, and there appeared a great wonder. Those women of wonder. These are women to be wondered at. That's in Zechariah 3. But no correlation there, folks. Verse 1, and there appeared a great wonder in heaven. A woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet. And upon her head a crown of 12 stars. That's the 144,000 daughters of Zion. And this woman represents them. All right? And the spirit that indwells them. And there is one, yes. 2, and she being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. The delivery of the children belongs to the daughter of Zion. No one else can deliver these children. And that's what Psalm 68 tells us. What does it say? We just read it, of course. I left the verse. What did it say? It says, blessed be the Lord who daily bears our burden, the God who is our salvation. That's your daughter Zion as your Azazel goat. Verse 20, God is to us a God of deliverances, and to God the Lord belongs escape from death. She's the one that's going to deliver you from death by birthing the children. And God here, as we have proven in prior videos, referencing passages that tells you who God is, it is the daughter Zion. It tells you that. And daughter Zion number alone, the combination, plural, of these daughters Zion, typically their number, I believe, is 410 and 430. They go together. And Lord, for the daughter Zion, singled out as a singular who gets to hold the spirit of daughter Zion, is called 136. That's her number. All right. So what does it say? God is to us a God of deliverance, and to God the Lord belongs escape from death. So, like I said, it takes us back to Romans 11. Verse 19, blessed be the Lord, 136, who daily bears our burden. That's the Azazel goat. That's the she-goat that you see referenced in Genesis 15:9. the God who is our salvation, the one that is going to deliver you through great deeds. Okay, you go look the word salvation up, it's 344. So we know in Revelations 12 that the woman here that is being in pain and travailing to bring forth her firstborn child, because we've been told this story in a much grander picture, almost what I've come to understand, the overlay over all of this, over the Bible, is like it's already happened. God has already done it, highlighted the points, but it's been done. That's how it sounds when you get a much larger picture of the story. And verse 2, and she being with child, because she's now at the point again that she was at before. We discussed that. She's with child now, okay? And she is travailing in birth, and she is paying to be delivered. She's about to give birth. Now this time, we are not going to give birth to empty doctrines. We're not going to do that. We're going to cause the inhabitants of this earth to fall this time. They are going to fall, because the inhabitants here that's being referenced is those wicked sheep of the field that hearkens to the voice of those he-goat rulers that the Holy Spirit put in charge. She was never in charge. He was never in charge of the body. She was. The she-goats that are referenced in your Genesis 15:9 covenant. She's your Azazel goat, though they translated a he-goat. She's your scapegoat that bore the sins of what the Holy Spirit and fallen Adam did. She's bearing these sins. And then she's found in Song of Songs. She's actually a shepherdess to this flock of she-goats. You go look the word kids up there, it's she-goats. She's a shepherdess to these she-goats. She's leading them down the clean footpath. And you come to realize that these she-goats are called the daughters of Zion when you continue to read Song of Songs. And the daughters of Zion says, come, let us pursue thy love on this path that you are on. And so they all come together as this powerful moving entity, as this army, this host, referenced as a congregation in Psalm 68. It is these daughters of Zion. And they're the behemoth. They go by the name of a behemoth, a powerful moving entity. This was the name of Israel in the beginning. And what does it say in Song of Songs? She says, I have been forced to tend my brother's vineyard, but my own I have neglected. And then Mother says, I will call her out of the wilderness. She says this in Hosea 2. I think she says in the wilderness, I will call her out of the wilderness, and I will give her back her vineyards that he stole from her, that the Holy Spirit stole from her. They belong to her. So here she is once again, and she being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. Verse 3, and there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon. Who's this? This is Lucifer as a moving entity, all right? With those daughters of Babylon and those wicked sons that's exalting her in the midst of the body. Having 7 heads, a 7-fold wicked spirit, and 10 horns. And 7 crowns upon her head. That's what she has. And her tail drew the 3rd parts of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. So these daughters of Zion, according to Revelations 12, has come to the point where they are ready to birth children. And who's there to oppose them? Well, the Holy Spirit, Babylon, daughter Babylon, Lucifer, and fallen Adam, as this entity on earth is moving to prevent her from birthing her children through truth. That's what we're told in James chapter 1. It says, I will birth you through the words of truth. And we know the deliverance belongs to God. In the Old Testament, it says the deliverance from death, escape from death, belongs to God. God there, when you go search it out, is daughter Zion. All right. So, and she brought forth a man-child. She finally gives birth to the children, to the body. And what did we find out in Romans 11? Let's go there. I don't even know how far I am on my time frame here. All right. So let's go into Romans 11. All right. to get a better understanding of this, what we're looking at. We've done this before. Romans 11 says this, for if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world, that was the daughters of Zion represent as the righteous spirit, why shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead? Deliverance belongs to them, and them alone. And verse 16, for if the first fruits be holy, the lump is also holy. The body is holy. So if they're holy, and the spirit of the body, which she's about to birth it, understands the truth, then it says, for if the first fruits be holy, the lump is also holy. And if the root be holy, so are the branches. So it's telling you the lump is holy. So it's saying the body. Well, people say, well, you can't prove that. That means body. Yeah, I can. Just go to Romans 9. And what does it say in verse 21? Had not the potter power over the clay? Let's go back. Verse 20. Nay, but, O man, who art thou that repliest against God? Shall the thing formed say to her that formed it, why hast thou made me thus? 21. Had not the potter power over the clay? That's your spirit. She has power to reshape the clay, the body, which is what is so important about the first fruits. These daughters of Zion, representing the Spirit of Christ, must birth the body. And what that means is she's got to shape the clay. That's what it means. She's got to give life to the body by reshaping it. All right? Through truth of the word, the clean footpath. Right? We have not wrought any deliverance in the earth. We has, as it were, brought forth when? Empty doctrines. We have failed to bring forth the body. We have failed to bring it forth and shape it. But what does it say? Have not the potter power over the clay of the same lump to make one vessel unto honor and another unto dishonor? The Spirit has the power to do that. All right? So when it says, for if the first fruits be holy, the lump is also holy, and if the root be holy, so are the branches. So if these first fruits, which is your daughters of Zion, which were cast out in the very beginning, but then they give life back to the body, they do this by finding the path of truth. All right? And the way that we do that is by being in love with Christ. Because we know who Christ is. And Christ isn't Baal. He is not the image of our husbands. Because our husbands wants to rule over us. You ask any man. I don't care how sweet and kind he is. My father, my dad. I have the greatest dad in the world. But let me tell you, when it comes to his theology and understanding, men rules, baby. Bible says so. It's the truth. I love my dad. But he's been led on a crooked footpath. And it's one that tickles men's ears, is what it does. All right? And you know how many righteous women out there believe that and would never dream that they have been taught by Baal. Our husbands have been taught by their fathers who taught Baal, the image of Baal, your husband as your Lord and Master. Now, these daughters find the clean footpath, and it is only the daughters that's going to find this, I believe, truly to a depth that only a woman can understand the true love of a man. And the love that we want our husbands to feel for us. That deep sense of respect and reverence that the Bible does speak of, but then says, well, if you're a godly woman, you're going to, submit to your husband. And I have real issues with the word submit, because it says submit to one another out of love. Well, it's very hard for me to believe that his love is as great as mine if I got to submit to him. And do you know how many supposed Christian men have used this to subjugate their wives? The numbers are untold. So I know good men. I have good men in my life. But I also know what's at their heart. And their heart is, women's under us. They've been taught it. They've been taught it by Baal. But when they speak of my Christ, I look at him differently. I do not look at him like he's my husband. I look at him like he is so loving and kind that he don't look at me like I'm inferior to him. He looks at me with reverence and love and equal respect. That's how these daughters of Zion find the clean footpath by understanding on a deep, deep level the love of the Savior, of Christ. This is how we find deliverance of the children. All right? We didn't do it ourselves. In a sense, it took the daughters of Zion through a long line to bring forth Christ to teach him that truth. But he's the only begotten Son of the mother. He's the only begotten Son. And she sent him to show us where we belong in this whole context. Because along the way, we were going to forget that. And it's the great love of Christ, of who he really was, that's going to lead you back to the clean footpath. Now that's how I've come to understand who my love is. You can believe he come to subjugate you under your husband. You can believe that and think that makes you a godly woman. Go for it. But I can tell you one thing, you're not one of these daughters of Zion. The daughters of Zion is going to pick their heads up and they're going to understand the love, the true love of their Savior, and that he was not anything like Baal, who says, you are to bow down to your husband as Lord and Master. Book of Esther. Okay, now, what was we talking about? We were talking about Revelations 12, right? So, and the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. Now, I'm still studying this, okay, to try to put all this information together in such a way that it makes sense. Okay. So she's took to a wilderness. These daughters of Zion, appears to be 144,000, they're took to a place in the wilderness, a place prepared for her by God. All right. Now, this is what I'm starting to suppose, because Michael here, it is the daughter Zion. Now, I don't know if, what I come to think of it, I'll put it this way, is that this is one portion of the voice telling it one way, and now this is another part of it telling it to you another way. Okay, so what I mean is the physical 144,000 daughters of Zion on earth who fight to give birth to the body. So I tend to go back and I'm looking at people who have visions of there being more than one rapture, and I'm thinking that's how the birthing of the body is going to look. It's going to take a series. It's going to take a 3.5 year span of time to actually birth the body, is what it looks like, and to get them out of here. So that first 3.5 years, she's actually going forth birthing the body, is what it looks like. After she's done that, what we see here is an overlay of that in the spirit world, starting at verse 7, and what the spiritual entity or components to the physical entity on earth did in the first 3.5 years in the second heaven. All right, now, did I say that in a way that you can actually understand it? And there was war in heaven, and the prince, actually, it's not the prince, it's the spirit component to these daughters. Principal. Your principal, and her angels fought against Lucifer, the dragon. And the dragon fought and her angels, and they prevailed not. Sarah's name means to prevail. That's what Sarah's name meant. And that name got handed on to Jacob, we're told. Because I truly believe Sarah's name was Israel. If you go look up the derivative of Israel, where Israel derives from, it derives from Sarah El. So it was her name because Sarah prevailed in the spirit. And that's how we are to prevail. Because according to Zechariah, Mother says, not by might nor by power, but by my spirit do I do these things. So we prevail through over our enemies in the spirit. So while we're doing this in the physical, it looks like we're actually prevailing in the spirit, which is what this is a picture of. So verse 8, and the dragon fought and her angels, and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven for him. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. She was cast out into the earth, and her angels were cast out with her. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength, and the kingdom of our God. Our God is daughter Zion, in the power of her Christ. For the accuser of our sisters is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. Now the God there is mother, all right, it's 23:16, which is going to tell you feminine, masculine, but it is mother sitting on the throne. She's the one that's angry about what's been done to her righteous daughters, but she's the one that's brought us through this by showing us Christ, sending Christ to die on the cross to put the righteous daughter back in her rightful place. And what does it say? It says, now is salvation come and strength. Well, if you get studying Revelations, you come to understand it's a 3.5-year mark that Lucifer gets tossed out of the second heaven. So it's the 3.5-year mark. So it takes 3.5 years to birth the children, the body, it looks like. And by that 3.5 years, they're took to a safe place in the wilderness where they're protected. And by the 3.5-year mark, it says, now is salvation come and strength in the kingdom of our God, in the power of her Christ. So it means that we've managed to put the truth in play. We've delivered the body, and she's now took control of the midst of the heaven, which is the body the righteous spirit has. That's what we're being shown here. This is all symbology. If you don't understand the allegories, you're not going to understand the literal. I don't believe. You absolutely have to understand the scriptures in allegorical context in order to understand your more literal understandings. So that's what we see there. See, I'm running out of time. Persecuted the children. It says the seed of the woman. And when the dragon saw that she was cast unto the earth, she persecuted the woman which brought forth the man child. So, but they're took to a safe place. And to the woman were given 2 wings of great eagle, that she might fly. That's the spirit. That she might fly into the wilderness. So I wonder here if the wilderness isn't the second heaven. I wonder that. All right? I just wonder that. Okay, so because we're still studying this, trying to get to the heart of the matter. And it looks like that's where she's got to be exalted, in the midst of the body, which could be where Zion exists, the Mount Zion exists that she needs to make it to. So I'm wondering if the great eagle isn't representative of the spirit, because we know that that's what it represents in the Bible many times. The eagle represents the spirit. That she might fly into the wilderness. So she's took to the second heaven, possibly into her place where she is nourished for times in it for 3.5 years. It says, from the face of the serpent. And the serpent cast out of her mouth as a flood after the woman, that she might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood, or his mouth, swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of her mouth. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed. So not her, but with the remnant, which keep the commandments of God and has the testimony of Jesus Christ. So we're still looking at that. All right, we're still looking at the allegories of that. I'm not saying this is easy to follow. We're just trying to slowly put it together where we can put it together. So now we've come to understand that is daughter Zion that must birth truth in the earth. It does look like that birthing takes 3.5 years. The first 3.5 is not known as the wrath. It's known as the tribulation. And it's known as travailing. So she's birthing. She's bringing them forth. And in the process, she's bringing the inhabitants of the world down. That's what she does through this birthing process. And at the 3.5-year mark, she is seen, at least the second heaven is seen being void of Lucifer, being cast to the ground. And where does it say it? It says, woe to the inhabitants of earth, for the devil has come down to you, and great is the wrath. It says that in a chapter in Revelations. We can go there. I'm running out of time. I ain't even going to get through the passages I want it to get through. But in Revelations it says this. verse 12 of chapter 12. Yeah, if we'd have kept reading, it says, "Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because she knoweth that she hath but a short time, and he knoweth he had but a short time." That's the fallen Adam. He has a short time. That's the 3.5 year mark. Wrath. All right, wrath. And it's speaking of the devil's wrath here, the last 3.5 years. So I'm still trying to figure out the wrath of daughter Zion versus the wrath of Lucifer. I'm still trying to correlate that information, okay? Because it's not easy. We've had 6,000 years, almost 7,000 years of our eyeballs being clayed over. So when you choose to remove that clay and you start trying to piece this theology together, it's not easy. They've robbed us of a lot of passages that should have been here, I believe. And so it makes it much harder. But the Spirit is working with the daughters of Zion to bring forth the truth, to bring forth the children, to birth the children. That's what we are appointed to do according to the scriptures that I've been studying. Zechariah 1 is another fascinating passage. I was going to study it with you. I was going to look at it, but we're running short on time. So let's just go down it here. So it speaks of a man among the myrtle trees, and myrtle trees has the idea of bitterness. The bitter. This is where you get your bitter element from, the myrtle tree. So these myrtle trees are your daughters of Zion. This is what I believe. We spoke on how Mother takes that stone. I lay in Zion, I tried and tested stone. I believe now it's Isaiah 28 where that is found. I had said it on another video, but I had the wrong passage, like I have in a lot of my videos. Anybody who watches me, you know I fumble and stumble over my words. That's just part of me. But she says, verse 16 of Isaiah 28. She says, "Therefore thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I lay in Zion for a foundation, a stone, a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, a sure foundation, and she that believeth shall not make haste," shall not be ashamed, shall not fear. And we showed how Mother uses adversities, hardships, to take that stone and to press it to a point. And we looked at those words like a knife, like a sword. She's used our oppression by our enemy to actually shape us into the weapon that she needs us to be. This is what causes it. And so that's what I was looking at here. Myrtle means bitterness, but it means that it's actually shaped us to be who Mother always intended us to be, who Father always intended us to be, and who the Son wants us to be. So what does it say? It says, "I saw by night, and behold, a man riding upon a red horse, and he stood among the myrtle trees that were in the bottom, and behind him were their red horses speckled in white." Now, what we're going to understand here is there actually is 3 voices at work. This can be very confusing when you're studying it, but you're actually looking at 3 voices here. All right. "Then said I, O my Lord." The number there is 113. So the Lord that actually looks like is speaking here is Christ, okay? And who is it that he's talking to? Is it Zechariah? Yeah, the Lord unto Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, the son of Edu, the prophet. So the angel of the Lord, which looks like it's Christ's number for Lord here. So the angel of the Lord is 113. And he's speaking to Zechariah. And Zechariah sees these horses among the myrtle trees, and the man stood among the myrtle trees. And I believe the myrtle trees are these daughters of Zion as the mighty army. So they are on these horses. They're defined by their tribes, by their groups, by their colors. And then they're broke down into 4 36s. You get 144. And so you have 4 groups of 36s. And they're designated their colors. And the man that stood among the myrtle trees answered and said, "These are they whom the Lord," now the Lord here is large. And I believe what I've come to understand, and I can't explain how it works, but that Lord tends to culminate in the daughter Zion in mother's number as one. She's called daughter Zion and daughter Jerusalem. And daughter Jerusalem tends to reference mother, daughter Zion tends to reference the daughter, but Lord together tends to reference them both at times. So these are they whom the Lord, this is daughter Zion, daughter Jerusalem, has sent to walk to and fro through the earth. So this is the Spirit in the earth, represented by the 144,000 daughters of Zion. And they answered the angel of the Lord that stood among the myrtle trees. The Lord is standing among them, and said, we have walked to and fro through the earth, and behold, all the earth sitteth still and is at rest. Now, I ain't going to get through this. I know it. I don't think I got the time. Yeah, I'm running out of time. There's no way I'm going to be able to understand this in a cohesive manner without running out of time. But basically, when it's said and done, I'm going to summarize it here if I can. We begin to talk about the four horns that have scattered Zion and Jerusalem. All right? And we talk about those four horns. Well, by the time you read to the very end, it tells you that those four horns that scattered the remnant, or scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem, those horns that scattered them are the horns of the Gentiles that was exalted. So that's daughter Babylon that was exalted. And so they're standing in possession of Israel, of Mount Zion right now, is daughter Babylon, which is a Gentile. The Gentile nations of Adam and the Holy Spirit that he came to be in covenant with. And it speaks of how these were scattered by these four horns, which in the very last verse tells us that these were the horns of the Gentiles that scattered them. All right. Then it speaks of four carpenters. If you don't go in and look up your words here, you can easily get confused. Your carpenters here, they're crafting something. And I believe what you're looking at is the daughter Zion's that's being crafted to that point, that sword. And it says this in the very last verse. All right, just to summarize here. It says, then said I, what come these to do? And we're talking about the carpenters. What come that 144,000 daughters of Zion to do? And Christ spoke, saying, these are the horns which have scattered Judah, so that no man did lift up his head. Actually, no woman lifted up her head. But these, meaning the carpenters in your prior verse, have come to fray them, have come to make them afraid, to cast out the horns of the Gentiles, which lifted up their horn over the land of Judah to scatter it. They did more than that. They took possession of the land. That's what they did. And we discussed that in one of our videos, how the hosts of heaven are going to fall like leaves from a fig tree. Well, the fig tree identifies Israel. Israel is often compared to a fig tree, all right? Well, why is the hosts of heaven compared to a fig tree when we know that that represents Israel? Because it's talking about who's in charge of Israel right now, which is the horns of the Gentiles. And what does it talk about these carpenters doing? These are carpenters that's shaping the four horns, the four new cornerstones, which are the daughters of Zion, that are now going to scatter. Actually, they're going to make them very afraid and cast out the horns of the Gentiles. And when that happens, we see the hosts of heaven falling from the second heaven. This is all allegorical. You really need, in order to understand the literal, in any sense of the literal, you're going to absolutely have to understand the Bible in allegorical terms, such as your body, your first, your second, your third heaven. What took possession of the heavens was what was exalted in the midst of the heavens, which was the Holy Spirit, which was daughter Babylon. All right? Okay, so we didn't really get to look at Psalm 68 closer. But it speaks of the congregation of these daughters. Let's see here. The earth shook, the heavens also dropped at the presence of God. Even so Sinai itself was moved at the presence of God, the God of Israel. That's your stone. From thence will come the stone of Israel. That's your spirit, that's your God, that's your daughter Zion. Thou, O God, didst send a plentiful rain, whereby thou didst confirm thine inheritance when it was weary. Thy congregation, that's these daughters of Zion, hath dwelt therein. Thou, O God, hast prepared of thy goodness for the poor. The Lord here, 136, daughters of Zion, gave the word. Great was the company of those that published it. That's the daughters of Zion. Kings of armies did flee apace, and she that tarried at home divided the spoil. This is almost done like it's already happened. All right? So it's like it keeps repeating it. It's like it's happened. It's happened. Though ye have lain among the pots, yet shall ye be as the wings of a dove, covered with silver, and her feathers with yellow gold. That's the spirit. And it acts like she was asleep for a time, but now she's awakened. All right? Within these daughters of Zion, which we know them, they carry through a long line of daughters that were scattered into the lands of the Gentiles. To bear the sins of that whore spirit, to bear the sins of Israel, it says upon her head. When the Almighty scattered kings in it, it was white as snow in summer. Well, when does the Lord propose that the tribulation period is going to take place? Well, Job hints at the fact that it's going to happen in winter. The tribulation is another term for winter. You know, it brings on the cold time, the bad time. And you're looking at when the Almighty scattered kings in it, it was white as snow in Solomon. And so you have something very telling there. But it's almost like the story repeats. It's like it's been done. It's happened. It's happened. And you keep hitting on that idea. It's very hard to explain it because the view you're getting is so large. It's a huge picture that you're really looking at here. Because you have to understand it's God that's telling you the picture. And so Psalm 68 is another one that you absolutely got to look at. Why leap ye hills, ye high hills? They're leaping like she-goats, I think. The chariots of God are 20,000, even thousands of angels. The Lord is among them as in Sinai in the holy place. This kind of puts me in the mind actually of the cherubim and puts me in the mind of Ezekiel 1:10, I think it was, or 1:8. Puts me in the mind of Isaiah chapter 6. There's a correlation here to the way that the bride and her train is set up, and who serves the Lord. Thou has ascended on high, thou has led captivity captive, thou has received gifts for men, yea, for the rebellious also, for the Lord God might dwell among them. So you have Christ in the New Testament doing that, but this was Old Testament. This is the daughter Zion here. It's her deliverance. It's only she that can deliver the children. Blessed be the Lord who daily loadeth us with benefits. She is, to the Lord belongs the issues from death, the escape from death. And she is the spirit that delivers the children, the body. If the first fruits are holy, then the body is holy. And so it's on these daughters to birth truth in the earth. That's how the deliverance comes, by way of the body, by way of women. Men can't deliver the burden, it tells you that. Why then do I see every man standing around with his hands on his hip as a woman in travail? They can't deliver the children. Number one, they're trying to deliver it through the lies of Baal. They're not delivering it through the truth of Christ. And we daughters, our great love for who we believe Christ to be, who we know Christ to be, we go forth in testimony as his spirit on this earth. And that's what we're appointed to do. So I'm just about out of time. Thanks for anybody who watches my video. I know this is a bit convoluted, but this is how study goes. You know, you mix, mash, throw things out, keep things in. That's how study goes. You're not always going to be right the first time around. I hope you have great blessings from the Lord this day. And I hope you have a nice day. I hope everything goes really well for y'all. Love ya. Thanks for watching my video. Take care.